Welcome to the December 9th, 2013 regular board meeting. Would you all rise and pledge your allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item is approval of minutes, business meeting of November 25th, 2013. Everybody got a chance to look them over?
Huh?
Except you just opened your.
No, I didn't. Motion to approve the minutes from November 25th, 2013.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Citizens input, would anybody like to be heard? Come on, Don.
Yeah, I see it's on the agenda. My name's Don Nussey, 4 Pond Street, Spencer. See it's on the agenda about the public sand. I went down there the other day to get sand, and there's nothing there. And then I was told how that wasn't gonna be available this year. Well, you run into something like that, I think it would've been nice if you had a little heads up to know what's going on. And my son, because he was up at Bonds just a couple of days before that, he could have picked up sand. And he was pretty upset, and I was too, because I use the sand on the sidewalks at my house, and I don't use that much. But it was a surprise to me when I heard what happened. And you pay taxes here, I figure get a little bit out of it somehow. I know the town's got problems, but.
And I did talk to Don on the phone, and that's why we had scheduled this on the agenda for discussion tonight. So we are going to take it up, Don, as you know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to be heard? Mr. Serba.
Good evening, Bob Serba, 23 Summit Street. Let me preface this by saying this is in no way a shot at Adam and his budget. I mean, I know how hard this was to put together given the financial constraints and everything that's going on. I'm extremely concerned about the fact that the seniors are getting no love from this board. When Tony was a rep for the seniors, nobody ever saw him. You know, they know Bo, they know Gary. The rest of you guys, nobody seems to be supporting this. When I saw the Spencer Rescue Squad come in and ask for a $150,000 override, and the selectmen came back and said, we'll give you $110,000. Well, that wasn't good enough for Mr. Cloutier. Mr. Cloutier wanted the whole shot. Adam, in fact, stated in a March 29th article in the New Leader, said, by putting money for the Spencer Rescue Squad on the fire department budget and doing a one-year contract, it would give the service time to evaluate its operation. He also added it would give us time to study the issue, which certainly made a lot of sense, but you guys went and gave him a 3-year contract. Now, how's that working out for us right now? We got a 3-year contract with the Spencer Rescue Squad. We're now a mutual aid rescue squad with a minimum time, from what I understand from the minutes at the workshop, at least a 20-minute wait time if we're lucky. We could have had Vital for 3 years for no money, but that's really water under the bridge. But I guess my point to this is, you guys advocated very hard for the Spencer Rescue Squad, especially Mr. Berthium. Mr. Berthium went out on a limb, even going so far as to commit a conflict of interest by working for Mr. Malash last year. And I've got a copy of that. I've got a copy of the
Bobby, time out.
Let him go, because this is gonna help me. Go ahead.
I'm sure it'll help you, Donnie. It always does. You know, it's kind of ridiculous. It's like we can advocate for all this stuff, and we can advocate for Spencer Rescue Squad, and we can work for him, even though that's technically, you shouldn't even be doing that, it's a conflict of interest. In fact, when I mentioned it to Mr. Woodbury, and Mr. Woodbury passed it on to Adam, and they asked Donnie about it, and Donnie goes, no, I haven't worked for anybody from Spencer Rescue Squad. Apparently that was the other case. Now my question to you guys is, why don't we get Vinnie Cloutier to be the advocate for the Council on Aging? They'd probably tear down Maple Street and build the Taj Mahal for these folks. They've recently had $10,000 cut out of a $15,000 budget for a tax abatement program that helps the neediest of seniors. And nobody had a problem with that. Nobody had a problem with that at all. Nobody had a problem with Spencer Rescue Squad selling the seniors on overrides through daytime campaigns, 2 daytime campaigns that nobody could have possibly made because they were both scheduled at lunchtime. I guess my point to this is, it's time to start stepping up for the seniors. Seniors got cut $30,240 out of their account. You know, there's other towns that are doing a hell of a lot better job supporting their seniors. I mean, we spend $10,800 a year to the Spencer Fish and Game. Now, that's fine. Now, you're gonna tell me for almost $11,000, we can't heat and put those seniors down there? And it's certainly not a handicap issue, because it was not a handicap issue when the kids were going to school there. My point is, it's time for you guys to step up and start advocating for the seniors. And this is a group that doesn't ask for anything, because they're not from a generation that ever asked for anything. They're not the Obama welfare generation. These folks have always done their own stuff. And they'd be embarrassed to step up to the plate, but somebody needs to step up to the plate for them, and it needs to be you guys. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Jim?
Sure.
Just two things on the senior work program, and then Maple Street, Bob.
Sure.
The senior work program has only been around for, I think, 2 years, 3 years. I think Paul Guida put it in.
This is the 5th year.
So Paul Guida put it in '08. So when we were looking at different services, every service is important, obviously, but I think we're gonna have an even more difficult time in January and May. Nobody, I think, it was an easy decision for anybody. I think that what it came down to is, do we lay off a highway worker, or do we do this? Do we, do we close down Hall 2 days, or do we do certain things? So these are one of the things that went into keeping the services we have, and it was a difficult choice, absolutely. Is it something we want to put back in? I think absolutely. The second part was Maple Street. When you say we cut $30,000, and that money wasn't there last year, they didn't necessarily get cut. We put money in the budget so we could open up the building. But once the school issue happened, we had to take the $45,000 in additional state aid that was gonna go here and use it to offset, again, to keep police on the streets, to keep highway workers going, plow the streets, et cetera. So we've had to put that program on hold. I think we're gonna explore whether or not we do that, but we didn't necessarily cut it. We actually, it wasn't there to begin with.
Rearranging money.
So again, these are hard choices, and as far as the other guys add some comments, but, there was some thought going into those two things, and we're gonna have to start looking at essential and non-essential services. And the senior work program last year, I looked at it today, we only spent $11,400 out of the $15,000, because not everybody qualifies for it, not everybody applies for it. Some people do it, but we don't have enough work for them. So it was $11,400 last year. We've spent $5,000 this year. So if you look at that, it was a $6,000 hit. And yeah, does it affect people? Absolutely. But it was one of those things that we had to look at in order to keep all the other things going. And I think it's very near the top of the list in terms of things that we want to keep. But I'll get back to you guys.
Anybody else have anything to add?
I would just say that with some of the savings we want to make in some other areas, the transfer station being an example, the opportunity to restore some of the cuts that we had to make. There wasn't a lot of time to spend on it. People were gonna feel it. We said that up front, and still we had to use $400,000 in free cash, which was a really painful going forward. So they are regrettable. I think the point is well taken. I think we need to be aware of everybody who's hit by these. But with January and the new year, we have a chance to take a fresh look at the budget and some new consolidations, and and reorder some priorities. Fair enough.
And I just want to follow up to say is I live and breathe it, obviously, and the director's here tonight. To add what she has to add to it, I will say this, and just to clarify, and I would have stopped you, Bobby, on that point, is when we negotiated for the fishing game, it was Adam, myself, and Donnie that went down there and worked the issues out. So, I mean, it's not that everybody wasn't involved. That being said, do I think that's a big issue for the town? Sure it is. It's the last one to be funded and the first one to be cut. We know that. Historically, that's the way it's been. Do I think it's right? No, but, unfortunately, with the criteria we're working under now, I don't think we had a lot of options left in front of us, unfortunately.
And I understand that, gentlemen. It's just the fact that when it came time to advocate for two former selectmen, no stops were pulled. Vinnie came in berating you guys, and I remember approaching approaching Donnie at one of the school committee meetings about how they're gonna vote on the school vote. It's like, you know, this is the old boys network. This is the way this is always run. You know, and these guys got what they wanted. How come Spencer Rescue Squad hasn't had any cuts, you know, put forward to them? Oh, that's right, they'll close the doors if they get a cut.
But one thing I'd like to add, Bob. Go ahead,
Go
Mr. Chairman.
ahead. I was just gonna say that, and fortunate or unfortunate, we're under contract with them, and it's an entirely different process at that point. I'll let you finish up.
Well, all I'm gonna say is, and people have said this to me in terms of, obviously I have a job to do, and obviously the elected officials up here have a job to do. But at the end of the day, people voted for an override. I don't remember how many hundreds of people, or whatever it was, I don't remember that count, whether it was 1,000 people to 500. At the end of the day, that's the vote that authorized the spending on that particular issue. Same thing with the cuts and the things that we proposed. We had to go through town meeting in order to get approval to do it. If people didn't like it, they could have stood up and and said, we want to do something else. And I think based on the time that we had, there wasn't a lot of other choices to make. But this board is limited in terms of the power that they have, and I am too. And at the end of the
Oh, and I
day,
understand.
it's the people who show up at town meeting, and it's the people that show up at the ballot box. So when we looked at how we were gonna fund the rescue squad, keep in mind, Vital was a mutual aid service. Okay, they were in the same situation that they were proposing here, is that they were gonna put an ambulance
That's
in
not
it.
how that was put to me by Rob.
They were putting an ambulance in the building, they couldn't, and then they were gonna have, their backup was going to be on Worcester, on South Main Street, or if they could work something out with Paxton and Leicester, which they had not happened yet. They were a mutual aid service, I think that's what people need to understand. It was the same concept, there is not enough calls here in this town that can support of two full-time 24/7 ALS trucks. Same situation here, they have one, and they used Paxton before, and now they're using some of the other towns because Paxton's not in anymore. Vital was gonna do the same thing. I agree there was a cost, but at the end of the day, 1,000 people, whatever the number was, those are the folks that voted in favor of it, not 5 people.
Oh, no, there was no question, but it was the way it was presented, and that was not the board's fault, but there was, at least one member of the board, that it was part of a campaign to put out information, and a lot of it was misinformation, and I've mentioned this before.
These guys didn't pay for the mailing.
Can I
They
just
did a
say
mailing,
something,
and all
guys?
that.
We're not gonna debate
I know,
that here
still
and
going
now. And I appreciate your comments, Bobby, but this isn't the place or the time
Fair enough.
to debate this issue, in my opinion.
Appreciate that.
I think we take your point on the seniors, and,
That's all I'm trying to get across, and I understand, doing the budget, like I prefaced the conversation, it's never an easy thing, but I'd like to see more advocates going for the seniors as hard as they did for the two former selectmen. I would appreciate that.
fair enough.
All right, communications, anybody have anything?
Or do you have any more citizen input, Mr.
Oh,
Chairman?
any more citizen input, I'm sorry. I saw Kirk go like this, so he's not gonna say nothing.
He's gonna wait till the agenda items come up, I think.
Now we'll go to communications. Nothing?
I think there's a holiday parade or a Christmas parade.
Wow. That's right, there is.
Oh, yeah, Saturday, right?
Christmas.
Saturday the 14th, Christmas parade. 7 PM. Starts at the high school, ends at the highway department, just like last year.
Did I see snow in the forecast, maybe?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Snow. So
Well.
we'll see.
Oh, that'd be beautiful,
We'll
right?
do a call, so everybody will know. Yeah, if it's a little snow,
Yeah,
if it's a lot,
yeah,
you
it could be.
can, but we'll see.
So it's planned for Saturday, and the snow date is the Sunday?
Sunday.
Sunday. Okay. So hopefully everybody gets out for it, it's usually a good time. Action item, here we go. Vote on the availability of sand salt to the public in the Spencer East Brookfield School District.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I'll start, and as you know, it hasn't been a very fun year, and it hasn't been a very good start to the FY14 budget. As we all know, the last 6 months have been pretty tough. As you know, also, we've had to make some decisions, some of it was mentioned tonight, in terms of what we're gonna spend our money on and what we need to hold off on until we can further evaluate where our spending priorities should be, because it seems like we do not have enough funds to fund all the services that people want, people desire, and then those that we need. So at the beginning of the season, as I was discussing with staff some of the issues and some of the things that we've had to deal with, one of those things was in terms of the spending as you know, we had spending freezes put on staff in terms of expenses in the early part of the fall, two of them, based on the unknowns of what would happen with the school budget. In addition to that, even though the state came in and issued what we'll call a favorable decision, it still represented a $700,000 hit for us. I advise staff strongly, as we move forward between now and June 30th, to curtail their spending, even though there may be funds within their budget, not necessarily freeze it, but obviously curtail it and spend it wisely, knowing that we just made $200,000 in cuts within our budget, and that every little penny is gonna count in terms of free cash for next year. We rely on free cash for all of our capital needs, and as you saw this year, it came in pretty handy when we had to balance the budget, when we didn't have enough money to balance the budget. So, as part of that discussion, I had discussions with staff regarding the availability of sand. In the past, we have provided what we'll call free sand to the Spencer East Brookfield Regional School District, and my understanding is also we put piles out in front periodically of the Highway Department building that we do have a policy that people are required, if they want to pick it up, they can use a 5-gallon bucket. There had been conversation about, in years past, that there had been abuse, contractors having access to it. And when we started looking at the amount of money that we spend in putting out sand in front of the building and also what we provided the school district, it seemed like a large amount that it wasn't an essential service, if you will. And I made the decision, along with Steve and Evan, to put a halt to that. I did have communication from the school district. They were not happy about that. And as you know, you've had some residents also have issue with that. So, as you know, we do have a sand and salt availability policy. It talks about any issues, at the time of, there's goal setting. So as you can see on the agenda that we have tonight, we have the agenda, on the agenda, the goal setting for the budget. So this discussion coincides with that and coincides with the policy. I apologize if I was premature to enact that decision before coming to you. However, I thought it was prudent based on the fact that we've had to make serious cuts. We do have $125,000, I believe, budgeted in the snow and ice, but as you know, we spent over $300,000 last year, and we had to use free cash in order to balance the budget. So every penny that we use that will go over this year in terms of snow and ice, we'll have to take free cash, which will limit our ability to do capital purchases in the spring. With everything that was going on, including cutting all the highway overtime, cutting $35,000 in the sidewalk repair budget, not refilling the position that's vacant right now, I thought that the availability of what I'll call free, even though taxpayers pay for every penny we spend, the perception is those are free, in addition to the amount of loads that we provide the school district, that it'd be prudent at this time to tighten the belt, if you will. It's your policy. Eben and Steve are here tonight to discuss it, so I put on the agenda. So if you decide to keep with the policy and not make any changes, I'm fine with that, and we'll move forward if there's a change. If there's a change, you want to change it, and we'll hold off on what we're doing this year. We can evaluate it next year. If you want to move forward and keep the action that I've taken, it's going to be up to you guys. So I'll put that back on you.
And I had conversation with both Eben about this. Steve and Eb, if you want to come up, I was trying to get a handle on the average cost of what we spend on an average year, and I don't know what an average year is, because last year probably wasn't an average.
Last year was way probably above average as far as snowfall amount.
But I did ask if they could give us some accounting of what we virtually spend.
What we did was we looked mostly last year. That was the easiest one to recollect because we were applying mostly salt to the roads. And so the sand purchases, we could kind of narrow down to that pile that was in front of the highway garage. We purchased a total of about 530 tons of sand, and we estimated about 400 of those were used for that use, for that pickup in front of the highway barn. In converting that sand, which we also mixed with salt, into costs, the 400 tons came to $26,000. Evan's preliminary estimate, without doing any of this math, was in the $20,000 to $25,000 range. So we kind of felt like the $20,000 is probably somewhere between 15 and 20,000 might be a good average number, and something over 25,000, like the high storms like last year, would be the above average.
Just to clarify, does that include the school stand?
Roughly, because of the same material.
No, but is it lumped in that dollar amount that you just mentioned?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's where we basically came up with costs, and then the other information was, you know, basically from reports, that if you're using 5-gallon buckets, you're not gonna be able to get that amount of quantity. There are people that have reported that regularly they see people shoveling it into the back of trucks. And with regard to the charge, to try to look for places to save money or curb cost, or this kind of seemed like it fell in line to something that was, you know, was used by, potentially being abused to some degree. What percentage? Not, we don't have the ability to track because we don't watch it to that level of detail. So it looked like an opportunity to present for savings, so that's what we brought to the town administrator and got to, you know, where we are now. Obviously, it's up to the decision of the board. We'll support whatever it is. The other thing we'd like to add is that to leave sand salt uncovered in the zone 2 is something we'd like to avoid. That highway garage location is in the zone 2. So if we do a sand salt mix, we'd suggest an alternative location, like potentially the transfer station. I know the transfer station has limitations with regard to the number of days a week, but if people get used to it and can plan for it and pick up the material and keep it on stockpile, that would be a reasonable means where it could be controlled to the smaller quantities, like the 5-gallon pails or something equivalent. So, as a suggestion for consideration. That's what we have for information with regard to the question. Are there any other?
Of that 15 to 20,000, is there a percentage you could assign to the free pile that's placed out? Is it a small percentage of the total, and most of it goes to the school? Is that?
Negative. The school, you can quantify, 4 loads, we brought them last year. We sand the schools on many occasions because they're not prepared for it. They come to the highway, we load their sander, and that's where the school's bulk is. They're probably more of the minimal side than the free sand.
So the bulk is on what you put out, is what you're saying?
Right.
Which, you know, again, if anybody has any questions for me, in my conversations with any phone calls I had, if you're dealing with $20,000 to $25,000 a year, it's kind of hard to justify it. And I said this before, if we were talking, you know, $2,000 worth of sand, I don't think we'd even be discussing it. But I think where we asked everybody to tighten the belt, I don't know, that's just one person, and I know you guys probably have something to say.
In 2009, with the assistance of the police department, mainly Officer Murray, we put a camera up to try to catch some of the alleged abuse. And out of the 11, either by somebody calling and saying somebody's abusing it, we have probably at least 4 people from out of town. One of the gentlemen who lived in East Brookfield said, "Oh, this is so much easier picking it up here on my way home. It's in a convenient spot. I'm in East Brookfield, I gotta go the back way," and so he thought it was okay to pick it up in Spencer. And that's where you kinda run into it. I got somebody here from Auburn, I got another contractor from East Brookfield filling the sand at one time. Like I say, that was in 2009. When we looked at it pretty hard, and the same thing typically happens if we're out during the night, that somebody tried to load a pickup at 2 in the morning while he's out plowing snow. And if nobody's at the highway garage, they get away with it.
I just think it's an enormous number, but do you have any questions?
Well, you know, yeah, through, Gary, I'd just like to ask, that's what, just like to say, that's what has some appeal to me, the idea of keeping it, the transfer station, you have some control. And when you talk zone 2, you're talking about a runoff, right? Issues related to the.
Correct. Zone
potential
2
watershed.
is the aquifer protection zone for our
Just
public
everybody
water
knows that,
supply.
that's what we're referring to.
And the transfer station is not in the zone 2, but the highway garage, all of the highway garage property is.
So if it were at the transfer station, I mean, do we have some covering we could take up there? It appeals to me, just for the control, for the Spencer residents.
The covering would be limited to a tarp when the transfer station is closed.
Okay.
And that's
All right.
similar to the way that we cover it out in the mixed in the highway garage area.
Okay.
But then the difference is that it's not in the zone 2, so it's not under the same.
And it's only available during work,
Yeah.
the time when the transfer station is open. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, you can't get any.
Well, we're talking about, it's a service I'd like to hold on to. It seems like it's, you know, the numbers are not insignificant, but it seems like for what it means to a lot of folks, and maybe it may seem like a small thing, but I think it's a nice gesture that I'd like us to maintain. I'd really like to avoid the idea that everything people are getting from their taxes goes away with these cutbacks, and this is a small item to maintain, and if we can do it with some control and at the transfer station and ensure that, you know, only Spencer residents have access, that has a lot of appeal to me. I mean, and what we potentially, I don't know, we cut it in half. I mean, I know it's hard to say, but it seems like it's, maybe we limit it to one 5-gallon bucket at a time.
But let me ask
It's
you
in the
this.
policy, that's what the policy is already done.
It's
But
already
is it one at a
there.
time that you're allowed? That's
I
my
don't think it
question.
limits it, it just says the type of
yeah,
container.
that
It tells you what you
That's
can
what I
get in
thought.
it. But let me ask you this, okay? Because, and I'm not negative to that idea, but what I am negative about is, we know we spend 20 to 25 grand a year, John. So even if you put it at the transfer station, what number do you want to stop it at? Because 20 to 25 grand, after all the cuts we made, is a huge number.
And most of that is, say, a small percentage of that is the schools. You say,
Yeah, very small. And actually, the small percentage is the guy who wants a pail of sand, goes through 2 or 3 pails of sand in the winter. It's people that, it's free, my driveway's a 1/4 mile long, the town gives free sand for my driveway. And that's where the abuse is, and that's when they start loading pickup. I'm using it in my driveway. But, you know, we're all supplementing his 1/4 mile long driveway.
Contractor that might come in from out of town or using it for other purposes. I think, I can't say how much it'll go down. How much do I feel it'll go
understand.
down? I think it would go down by 50% or more, just based on the ability to transport volumes in something equivalent to a 5-gallon pail. I do, if it went into a controlled situation, you know, some number, 3, 4, 5 at a time, that way someone can get it and have it in advance of the storm, so that they're not picking it up on Sunday, the day of the storm, when it's not available. And, you know, maybe that might be a question to, if a citizen is still here, if he feels like he could plan in that way and have it on call. I know in the past when I've used it, that's the way I've used, and not in Spencer, previous towns, I have it at my house before the storm. And then when I use it up, I get it before the next storm.
I'd be interested if Don wanted to respond to that, the idea of having it at the transfer station with some control.
I think the transfer station would be a good place to have it, because you can only get in there because of sticker. No outside is good.
I will add, though, that we would probably want to accommodate people in Spencer residents without stickers, and they could just come up there just for the sand, excuse me, so that they're not purchasing a sticker just to get sand.
Right.
So the 2 monitors that you have that are there, well, only 2 on Saturday and 1 on the other days, they would be responsible for monitoring this as well.
They would be responsible for monitoring that. I think that this,
Put in a location that's easy for them to see?
yes,
Because then what they do is they would check someone's sticker or non-sticker, or if they were out of town, would they still have to show ID that they were from town, those types of things?
that's what we would have to
Yeah.
look at.
I say it's a program we've had for years, we shouldn't get rid of it. 15 to 20, you said on average. I like the transfer station because it is more secure, so I make a motion to keep it, limit it to 3 or 4, what do you think, 3 or 4 at a time?
Yeah, I'll pick 4.
That's fine.
4
Yeah.
or 5-gallon pails at a time. I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Just to clarify, and this is all in the snow and ice budget, right? This is all,
Right now, John, what we have is, we have 125, is it?
25.
In the snow and ice budget, but we know we're gonna need
You're gonna definitely.
Yes, I
some
understand.
cash. It's just a matter of, do we put in 75?
but we don't have a separate
25?
category for
We put 100.
free sand or anything, that's just. all
It's part of the materials cost for snow and ice.
Okay, just want to make sure.
So, like I said, our thought was that the less we have to add to this account come spring, that gives us more money
Oh, I
to buy
understand.
capital in the spring. I just don't wanna be in a situation where it comes spring, and hey, I wanna buy a certain piece of equipment, and I don't have the money to do it. That was our thought.
How much is this salt a ton of it? It's that green stuff you use.
Yeah,
It's about $75 a ton.
72.
Last year was $73.92.
What do you mix it, 80-20 roughly?
Roughly, yes.
You mix the green salt with the sand as well, or is it?
You only have one salt, John.
Okay,
it's only
I didn't know
salt.
if
No.
I know that's more expensive, I didn't know if you bought separate salt to.
No, we
to
don't
mix
buy
with the
white
sand.
for the road and green for something else, it's just one salt. Comes in a
We
30
just- right, we
30-yard
just have the
trailer.
one green salt
That
contract.
80-20 or 70-30 makes sure it prevents the sand from freezing. Otherwise, you just have a
Yeah, 'cause
frozen
if you don't put
chunk
enough
of
salt in
sand.
it, the sand's gonna freeze.
I'd like to keep on supporting the schools in this regard. I think I know we've all taken a hit on this, I think in terms of a partnership. It just sounds like, I'm afraid it sounds like we're being mean if we just withhold the salt and sand.
You mean to us, or what the hell's the difference?
What?
The school's being mean to us, or what the hell's the difference?
That's not gonna get us anywhere, Bo. I mean, we've got
You
a
know?
year ahead here.
I just wanna say,
Let's just-
in terms of the, yeah, I think you should take separate votes. I think it was my recommendation to Mr. Chairman, if you should take separate votes. One is on the sand for the public at the train station, and one is the sand for the school, because I think one is service oriented. You buy a supply, you provide a service, the public have access to it. My thought behind the school, and why we stopped that, obviously because it was part of that number, I didn't know the breakdown, I apologize that beforehand, but, I didn't see it making sense that we would buy material from a location and then give it to them for free, when they could do the same thing, when they could then, buy the material, have it delivered, all the above. To me, it was, it was kind of, they're not the same. That's just my recommendation.
How much is the school roughly in a number? If you had to put a number on it? If it's very small part of 15 grand, what is it, a couple $1,000?
They usually fill the sand at twice during the storm.
Yeah, well, like I said before, it's
So
what
not
we,
even a couple thousand. Oh,
we
per
find
school.
is
Per
like
storm,
during the
yeah,
storm, they'll come
3 to
down
4
like we're
yards
getting loaded.
each time they come down.
And we load the school. We load the sand, but in a lot of instances, we ourselves, we're sanding all the schools because whether the sand is broken.
But East Brookfield doesn't do the same thing. So they don't drive to East Brookfield and fill up a truck
Right.
over in East Brookfield.
No,
They only
no.
come to Spencer.
That's correct.
So that was kind of my point is,
Yeah.
why is the town of Spencer doing all of the sanding or contributing all the materials that go to sanding a regional district? You know what I mean? I don't know if there was a
They have-
sharing component there, if there was a reimbursement component there.
They have been to East Brookfield for loads. East Brookfield's a little more difficult. There's only 3 guys over there and they gotta hit it right. But the East Brookfield superintendent did comment how all our nice salt keeps their school driveway nice and clear.
I don't know how you subsidize, to a
And they're
number
right
of
next to the school,
deficit spend
on
to
top
be
of it.
that amount of money,
All right,
20,000.
so the problem is,
You guys can do what you want.
I don't have a
Can't take away from
problem.
wait a
somebody.
minute, what do you mean deficit spend? We've done this for a million years. This is not deficit
And that's
spending.
your
It comes
opinion,
out of
Donnie,
snow
and
and
I
ice.
have my
It's not my
opinion.
opinion.
It is.
That's what it is. It comes out of snow and ice. It comes out of nowhere
But
else.
you're still deficit
Let me ask you
spending
this
it.
then. Where would you spend this 25 grand?
Number one, I
Because
wouldn't
obviously
spend
you
what
have
we
a
don't
place to
have.
put it.
I wouldn't spend what we don't have.
We do have it. We have snow and ice, and we use free cash every year for this. The 8 years I've been on this board, this is how this town does it.
That's right, and we haven't been in this position.
We've been in this position many times. So you want to deny people salt and sand for their
I'm not
sidewalks and
saying we're
driveways?
gonna handle this 2 at a time, and I'm saying, you're saying go and buy $20,000 worth of sand, and I'm saying, no, find a number. How do you know where that cutoff is? That's all I'm saying, is you can't justify
I have a motion on
number.
the floor, and then we'll take up the school one after that, because either
This
way,
is just for the residents when you.
just for the
Right.
residents. With the school, I mean, it doesn't matter to me. The problem is, if it's 3 grand, then they're just gonna add it onto their budget next year. So,
Right.
I mean, it doesn't matter, however you wanna play. We're gonna pay in the long run.
80%, right?
80%.
Exactly. There you go.
I
There
mean,
you go.
it's,
So,
a
We'll
penny's
save
a penny
$1,000.
here. I mean, the way I look at 20, 25,000, that's half of a highway work. That's the funding for the LEO. I mean, if it was in a different line item, that's the funding for the rest of the LEO position.
Then I agree, but
That's
it's
all
not.
that's all their overtime.
But it's not.
But we could have used free cash to supplement their budgets. I'm not saying,
We don't do that.
we just did 400,000.
We typically don't do that.
And that, to me, it was just the whole package, message, everything going on at the same time. And I understand that there's a concern and there's an impact. I also concern, it's $10,000, we could have taken free cash and put $10,000 into the senior work program. I mean, it's, unfortunately, the problem is that some decisions had to be made now, and then we know we're gonna have to make more decisions from January to May. They're gonna be harder and more difficult, and there's gonna be more people coming here saying you can't get rid of this. But at that point, if, we're gonna have this discussion, I think, many more times. Unfortunately, we had to make a quick decision now, I apologize to put everyone in this position, that it was done maybe prematurely, but I think everybody understands the spirit of what our intent was. But we'll live with whatever votes you make, and we're the ones responsible for implementing your policy, so this is your policy.
I do have a motion.
One quick statement. I think maybe some of the expense associated with this is due to the people taking advantage of the system and the lack of control. I'm hoping that if we go with this, that, this control will cut that expense significantly. And I'd look to next year, asking you how this system worked when we're in this position next year.
So can we add to Donnie's motion that this, the condition that we find a new home for it, that go up to the transfer station?
That- I made that-
That was
That was part of it?
Put that in there.
Okay.
So what we do is, I mean, if you do that, then we'll put a notice on the web. I don't know if we put an article in the paper that you can only get sand Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays at the transfer station under these certain conditions that you're a town resident, et cetera, et cetera. Provide identification to the monitors, limited to certain amount of buckets, blah, 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 blah. Right? If the vote carries. You only made one motion, so.
Yeah,
We need a
we're on
we
the,
need a
we're on
second
the
and a vote.
transfer station first.
No problem with the people, 'cause I don't want to get to schools.
You need to have a second?
Yeah, I'm waiting.
Oh, second?
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. This is on moving it to the transfer station.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
No?
Did you say aye?
Yeah, I did, I said that. I don't, I just don't wanna give it to the schools.
You want to handle the school
I
now?
agree.
I don't wanna give it to
So
the
why don't you
schools.
make a motion?
All right, I'll make a motion, I'll give it to the school. Because they screwed us already once, and I don't wanna get screwed again. That's my feeling.
You didn't
In the
have to
words of
expand on
I'm
it.
sorry,
Mr.,
but that's
I have
my
a
feeling.
motion from Mr. Fritz not to supply to the school. Do I have a second? Wow.
I'll second it.
The motion is second. All those in favor?
Discussion?
Okay.
I would just like to say that we've got a year ahead of us with the schools. I think it's a small gesture, but I think it's a matter of show good faith. We got a lot to work on with them. I don't want them, the idea that this is something worth withholding because we had such a bitter battle at times over the school budget. I think this is a gesture, a show of good faith. We've done it in the past, and I'd like to see it continue.
All right, any other discussion?
I'm just, again, the question is that whether we're supplying it for the entire district. I mean,
So
There's no way to
we're
break
supplying
down.
East Brookfield Elementary School, I want to let you know that.
Right,
that's an issue.
okay.
You wanna do a comment before we do a vote?
If I could speak out of turn, Mr. Chairman.
And Mr. Norquist.
As a citizen, I think that the school should pay for their material, like the town administrator says, that includes East Brookfield as part of the district. And I've never seen East Brookfield load trucks for East Brookfield only. So, it was said that it's gonna come out of our budget, but we pay 80%, and it's another way of let them take some responsibility. And I think that it would send a message, because we need a lot more messages up there. And if this continues on, it's the same old game.
Is that where most of it comes from? It comes from us, Ed, to do all the schools, most of it?
Yeah, they do, East Brookfield does do some, I checked with them today, they occasionally get loaded, but East Brookfield's typically all sand.
Most of the time.
And generally, what they sand is playgrounds only, where the kids play, they
Yeah.
put sand. So, and like, because we went to all salt, they're doing most all their parking lots in salt.
Can you just clarify that? Spencer East Brookfield School District truck will come down, you'll load it with salt, town of Spencer, and then it will drive over to East Brookfield Elementary and salt their driveway?
Right, they don't have a separate truck for East Brookfield, right?
Whatever's in the truck, I'm not saying they use the
I got
whole
one
truck.
sander, that's it.
I just didn't want to be
Yeah.
making an incorrect statement.
I'm not saying that they'll use a whole truckload
Right.
there, I mean, when you do salt, you cut your door down, you turn your.
So then Bo's right, it should go, I mean, I agree with John, but it sounds like it should go through the school, and then they kick the bill back to us, that way we know You know what I mean?
Even if it's 20% of 3,000, it's, what's right is what's right. It's, I mean, to me, it's, I agree that it's a good gesture to, but again, you're doing something free that, just, to me, it just doesn't seem right, and I think. we
And
should
just
right.
to add one more thing, when I was there, Sandy, okay, and when I went down Ash Street, automatically went up Knox Trail, and always did that. And if I was going on Lake Street and I see it was icy and they hadn't done it, I would run the sand truck through there. And that was just automatic, because 9 times out of 10, first of all, either the sander wasn't working, or they weren't out. And if we were out there, and like I say, I came down Ash Street and I looked up the hill, I'd go up with a sander and sand it. That's something we always did.
That's, and that's what we've been doing, is
Yeah.
we've always tried to help out the school. We sweep their parking lots, we
Yeah,
clean the
we
catch
sweep them in the
basins.
summertime and
Some of those
everything
are
else.
town buildings, you gotta realize that, there's some are regional,
Okay,
regional school system,
I have
but
no problem paying for it if it's part of the assessment. It just doesn't seem right that above and beyond that, we would be issuing free materials to a school in a different town when they have a DPW garage, they have buildings over there. It just seemed, just make it part of the assessment. We'll pay, if it's $3,000, we'll pay 80% of $3,000.
Yeah, once again, I agree with you, John, but it sounds like there's no internal control on that, so, I mean, who knows? East Brookfield saying could be coming here.
Which is a problem with all.
Well, I think just what I would say to that is, I think that's true, and that generally would be my instinct, but given where we are in the season and the fact that we can't go back up and work out an assessment on that, I would prefer to proceed with what we've done in the past.
Okay, that being said, I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No?
Okay. Thank you. Next item, discussion. Council
Thanks,
on-
guys.
Council on Aging Director. You're up.
I don't think I have to introduce myself, gentlemen. And right now, I'm just trying to compose myself, because in the 10 years that I've been a Council on Aging Director, I have not seen you spend as much time on an issue for the seniors as you just did, trying to figure out if you should supply sand. I'm just beyond myself on this. We just had $10,000 cut out of a $15,000 program. Mr. Berthium himself talked to me about this program in June, or May, it was a town meeting, and we were gonna add more to this program. This year is the year that when I had 15 people. It was a full program. As of today, we didn't even spend $5,000. The library has 309 hours, I have 150, and the town hall has 116. That doesn't make a big difference to the library, the town hall, but it's all the difference in the world to me. I have no employees. When I'm out sick, I asked Adam, what should I do? I don't take sick time. I have to put a sign on the door at the senior center that says closed. I have no volunteers that can come in because we're down the fishing game. We have to deal with keys, we have to deal with alarm codes. These are people that are elderly that are going down there. I would like to see somebody show up down there and see what the problems are. You think it's bingo and cards, and then I'm an activities director. I'm not an activities director. Please let me set your mind at ease and give you an idea of what my day is like. I'm in there today trying to figure out how a woman can pay her rent out of her $761 a month check that she gets. She worked full-time till she was 81 years old because she could not afford to retire. I have another woman that called me this afternoon. She lives in Spencer. She has a $632 gas bill from September. She can't get gas again until she pays that bill. She can't pay that bill. I called the gas company. I asked the gas company, could they please put her on a payment plan to do that? They can't do that. She's applied for fuel assistance. She's been accepted. But fuel assistance only covers November 1st till April. I don't have the money to pay her, so I spent the entire afternoon on the phone trying to find a program, a reference, something that could help this woman out. I couldn't talk the gas company into a payment plan. I don't know what she's gonna do. I asked her if she maybe would think about going into senior housing. You know, please come into the senior center. I'll sit down with you. I'll go through that. We'll look at all the possibilities. I'll look to see if I can get you Mass Health. Let me look and see if I can get you this. This is what I do daily. When I'm having cards and bingo down there, I'm not standing there playing cards or bingo. As a matter of fact, with bingo, I can't even be involved in it because of the lottery commission and the laws that are involved. I can't go to meetings for the Mass Council on Aging. I'm a representative of the Mass Council on Aging, a regional rep, that I got involved so that Spencer would be known, so that when I walk into a meeting through the state, or I walk in through an MCOA meeting, they can say, oh, there's Pam from Spencer. So when I apply for a grant, maybe we'll get one because they know who I am. They know I'm busting my fanny at that senior center. They see all my numbers every year when I report to the state. In the 10 years that I've done it, I have to stop quickly and just say, if it hadn't been for Mr. Gaudette, I don't think we'd be as far as we are right now. The seniors are angry. The seniors are hurt. They're disappointed. You guys made them a promise that they were going to Maple Street School. They don't take anything out of the funding. Seniors, you would love to have a town full of seniors. What do they take? They don't have kids in school. They've paid their dues. And now they're asking for some help. And a lot of times seniors will say, well, I don't use the senior center. And they don't. But boy, when they're in trouble, where do you think they go? They come crying. We just ended up December 7th was enrollment for Medicare. We have Medicare A, Medicare B, Medicare C, Medicare D. They're confused. They don't know. Today I had another call from somebody that's not even 65 getting ready to sign up for Medicare. What do I do? Who do I go? What do I see? For a town this size, this is ridiculous. North Brookfield provides better services to their seniors. West Brookfield, Paxton, Rutland, everybody. So I'm sorry that I sound so angry right now, but when you can pay $25,000 for sand, and you can't do that for seniors, I'm sorry, there's something wrong. There is something wrong. You need to get down there and start talking to these people and see what their problems are. I represent them. And everything I was going to say tonight is gone now because I am just so upset with this last discussion. But think about the seniors, please.
Thank you.
No, I got a few questions for you, if you want to sit down now. How come you never came before us before about the sand, about spending money on sand?
I didn't know about the sand.
You didn't know?
I had no idea until Adam talked about the sand in a staff meeting.
So
I was never invited to a staff meeting or told about a staff meeting until Adam personally asked me to come to these meetings. And these meetings, by the way, Mr. Berthium, are at 8:15 in the morning, and I don't get paid till 9. So I go to every meeting for 45 minutes that I don't get paid for.
I've been to every school committee meeting since December, and I
You're
don't
not
get
an
paid.
employee, you were elected.
I don't get paid.
You were
I don't get paid
elected.
for any meeting I go to. I didn't get paid when I did the plans for the Fish and Game for free, so you could have an office and they could build a bathroom down there. So don't tell me that we don't do stuff for the seniors. I did that for you and them down there, so you could have a space to put your office, and they could have a bathroom, a brand-new
You
bathroom.
didn't do that for me. You did that for your seniors.
I did that for the seniors.
You
So
did that
don't
for your
say-
seniors.
Don't say we didn't do it, we don't do anything for the seniors. We've had a couple public hearings in here. We've been through walkthroughs in Maple Street. Don't say we didn't do anything for the seniors.
Have you done, let me ask you this. You gave me one big room down at the Fish and Game. I keep growing. I mean, am I supposed to quit growing? Maple Street is a good opportunity, is a very good opportunity. But like the chairman said, and I'm sure he's heard it enough times, we are the last department funded and the first ones cut. These are people that can't go out and make any more money. They can't get another job. They can't. I want you to come down and talk one-on-one with them and ask them what they face on a daily basis.
If you remember at the annual town meeting, I spent a half an hour sticking up for the seniors and for you and to move to Maple Street. Unfortunately, because of what happened with the school, there's nothing we can do about that. It's very unfortunate.
No, but you can vote to pay for sand.
I can, because I'll bet you 85% of that sand goes to seniors.
No, it doesn't.
I'll guarantee you that most of that sand, seniors go down there and get it. I'll guarantee you.
Really? You think so?
I'll guarantee it.
I don't know if I'd go that high, Gary. I
50?
mean,
50?
50, 40 maybe.
So we give them $5 worth of sand, but we don't let the poor 78-year-old woman who is trying to stay in her home as long as she can. That's my job, by the way. A job description is to advocate for the seniors and also to try and keep these people in their community and in their houses as long as they can. The senior tax work-off program helps them. $1,000 to you and me doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're on Social Security, that's all the money in the world. That's a
I
big chunk
think
of this.
it accounts to everybody, and not to slight it. I mean, our goal was to go to Maple Street, and actually, when that first came up, I think it was Mr. Berthium that said that that'd be a golden opportunity. Unfortunately, and you're right, and I think I said the last meeting, is converting to gas, I didn't know what the expenses would be, that we should move them up anyways. Unfortunately, we do a line by line, correct me, Donnie, on any budget. So it's not like you can spend what you don't have. And that's what put us in this position to where we are today.
So you need more hours. So how many hours did we give her extra this year?
4.5.
So that was enough for you to get benefits? How much do those benefits cost?
I don't know what she takes, and I can't talk about it here. In terms of what she takes personally, I can't.
So why don't we do this? If we need more hours, why don't we hire another part-time person for down there? Why don't we go over the senior budget for the spring, and for next year, look at hiring another part-time
Well,
person?
these are the types of discussions in terms of January to May, in terms of every
I'm
service.
telling you ahead of time so you can get ready, so you can talk about this when
I
the
appreciate
time
that. I
comes.
appreciate that. What I'm saying is, from January to May, we're gonna have this discussion, and there's gonna be other angry department heads and other angry residents and other people here. We're gonna be going through every service, and there's gonna be things that we're gonna have to restructure, we're gonna have to regionalize, different things that we're gonna have to do, because there's not enough money to do everything we wanna do. It's gonna be very hard to maintain what we have and throw another $100,000 at Maple Street. We're gonna end up having, I know right now, we have a $700,000 deficit next year. $700,000. And then we wanna add $100,000 to Maple Street, which I would be the first thing, if I could add anything, would be. But you're gonna have to cut something else, or you guys are gonna have to ask for an override.
But how come Maple Street would be 100,000?
Because it's 100, we looked at last year, when we looked at the last 3 years the school was in there, and what they paid for utilities over a 3-year period, and it was almost $200,000, it was about 170, I think. What we did was we worked it down, saving by putting in gas on there, doing our own trash, doing our own plowing, whatever, and figured out that utilities-wise, we could probably only needed $100,000 to run that whole building. That's when, in July when the school issue came up, or before that came up, but when we went to the town meeting on July 25th, we had $45,000 in additional state aid coming. That was the $45,000 that was gonna be used, plus we had $10,000 in rent from Fish and Game, I'm up to 55, and then we made $55,000 in transfers, taking $2,000 out of town council. I eliminated the $5,000 new computer budget, so we got another 55 in there, so we had $100,000 now that we could operate Maple Street. Then what happened was, we kept going forward, and we realized that we weren't gonna get any funding, and we realized the state was gonna issue a major situation. We then cut $700,000 from our budget last week, $700,000. We put $400 in free cash. We used the $45,000 that was gonna be the extra state aid that was gonna go towards that 100 for this senior center. We took that back. That saved people's jobs, that $45,000. That probably saved, in the last, that's probably saved 3 clerks at town hall's jobs, that $45,000. I mean, in terms of what you have now is what you had yesterday. What you have now at Fish and Game is what you had in June.
Right.
But laying off 3 people, and by putting that $45,000 back in there, I was gonna do that, okay? So I eliminated that $45,000 for the senior center, said, listen, we can't open senior center right now.
No, that's not my concern. My concern is the $100,000, that would be for the whole school. We're talking about just the basement. Can't we just do just the
I'm
basement?
talking about heat, I'm talking about electricity, I'm talking about phone, I'm talking about cable. We looked at that building. I have to carry maintenance, even though, also, you got the email, it's higher, it costs more money to have those 2 spaces above you vacant than not used.
But it
Costs
must be more money
from an
to have the whole school vacant.
Pardon?
Wouldn't it be more money to
From an
have the whole
insurance
school?
standpoint,
I
a vacant
think,
space is more to insure than an occupied space because of vandalism, okay?
I think what we're debating here tonight is something that can't happen anyways. And we can go back and forth. I will say this, and I would suggest that you sit with the town administrator, and they'll gladly go over line by line what we went through.
Well, I think,
But-
what I'd like to do is, I'd like to move forward because that's what we need to do. I mean, looking what we did, we all know what we had to do, and we moved different line items around, and that was what we tried to do in July, was try to get the seniors in there, even with the school situation going on that we knew. But when it came down to last week's meeting, we had $700,000 deficit, there's no option there. Today, the people were in Fishing Game Club. A week ago, before that town meeting, they were in Fishing Game Club. So they're flush. But these guys
But
they lost all their overtime. Highway guys, all their overtime. $35,000 in sidewalk repairs, gone. We're not doing any.
Oh, I
You know,
understand
I mean,
perfectly.
you know, they're gonna be plowing the roads this year with 9 people instead of 10. You know, so, I mean, those are the types of things, I would love to fund that Maple Street School, but there's other things that had to be done with that money, like keep people's jobs. So what I wanna do is move forward, like I keep saying, I've probably said this 1,000 times in the last month, from January to May, my budget and goals are talking about that, in this meeting, but also tomorrow morning at staff. We're gonna outline, I've already outlined a process from January to May, that staff is gonna have to go through all the services that you offer, and that's fire, police, highway, and everything, and we're gonna go through them and say, what's a core service, and what's an elective, what's essential, what's non-essential, what's needed and what's wanted. And we're gonna have to go through a process, because I know there's people sitting to the left of me, there's 5 of them, that don't wanna ask for an override, no matter what. So we're gonna be cutting services. I know going right now, we're cutting services, so it's very hard to ask me to put that $10,000 back. It's very hard to you know, put $100,000 back into Maple Street to run, it's very hard to do, knowing that there's not appetite for an override either at this board or people on the street. $700,000 deficit before we even look at, I have 4 collective bargaining agreements to negotiate in the next 2 months. I don't even know how I'm gonna pay these people. Those people deserve to get paid after what they've been through the last couple of years. This is not, we're gonna have more of this in the next couple of months, I guarantee you. And
Unfortunately, I speak for 2,488
yeah, I hear
people.
you, I hear you. And those are and then this board is gonna be left with making decisions in terms of what have we done, what do we wanna continue to do, what have we done, and we're not gonna do anymore, or what do we need to do that we haven't done, and how are we gonna pay for it? And I tell you right now, there's not enough money to pay for all of that. We're probably talking 30 to 40% of what we do, we're not gonna be doing next year, if we don't ask for an override, okay? So it's very hard to add, and that's kind of, so what we did last week at town meeting is just a precursor of what's to be expected come May. And that's why I went and I cut the sand for the public, and I cut the sand for the school, because those are the types of hard decisions that are gonna have to be made.
And I would like you gentlemen to please talk to the seniors so that you realize what they are facing. Out of sight, out of mind. That's my whole point.
I'd just like to, Pam, please stay a second. I just would like to say, first of all, I don't think it's fair to characterize the behavior of the board, say we don't do anything or care about the seniors. The way we all responded to the opportunity at Maple Street School made it quite clear that this was, you know, this was the time, and this was the place, and probably the best deal we were gonna make. We didn't foresee, you know, the kind of firestorm coming with, you know, with cutbacks and all, so I hope it's just temporary. You know, it's gonna be an area that we all want to see restored. Secondly, you know, one of the things that was, I think, drove all of us in our conversation, and we heard it in voices of people who spoke up at the district meeting, and, you know, read about it in the newspaper, in terms of, you know, keeping the taxes down, and you know, fighting the override and trying to pull the school back to a number that we could live with, was about keeping people in their homes. And we know a lot of those are seniors on the fixed incomes you're talking about. So we, you know, I can see that, you know, this was a very useful to, probably sounds, you know, pretty critical, as you describe it, to some people's budget, the work program, and that had to go, but at least we've kept the taxes down. We didn't force the $500-600 increase that was you know, forecast in the very beginning. And finally, I think it is fair to say that paying a visit to the senior center would be a good idea. It's probably, I'll take that not as you may be issued as a challenge, but I'll take it as an invitation, and I'll come down, and I'd like to see for myself. And I will talk with people, and I'm, you know, it's fair to bring that up in the same way that we visit other areas of the town and spend time on, you know, other subjects on the agenda. So I'll be seeing you soon.
Thank you. I would like you to come down on one of the two busiest days.
And what are
which would
those
be
days?
Tuesdays and Thursdays
Okay.
would be a good day to come down and talk to the seniors.
What's the time? The time people are 10 to, is it 10 or 9 or?
Well, we
people?
open at 9, but
Okay.
you would run into exercise early. So I would say the best time to come is after lunch. probably around 12:30. They
Okay.
start coming in, again, after 2 programs in the morning. We don't have lunches, that was another issue with going to Maple Street, was we
I need to
would,
see what's happening there, and
You do.
especially it'll
You
help me
need to-
understand what could happen in Maple Street and what the opportunities are, so.
you know, another thing I just want to bring up real quickly is that it's not just space with the number of people that are coming, it's with, if I have a shine counselor, I have nurses, I have that coming into the senior center, I have to leave my office. I have no other place to put them, so I can't be in my office. I have to give up my office for that. Whereas at Maple Street, we would have an extra area that they could have gone into to see that.
Okay.
All right. Item C, discussion, fiscal year 14 CDBG, Community Development Strategy.
Mr. Chairman, with us tonight is Elizabeth from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. I apologize for telling you to come at 6. But thank you for sticking around. If this, I did give these guys copies of this. This is 2013?
13, yes.
So I don't know if you want to make copies available to to get 2 reporters in here, or anybody else that wants a copy of the community development strategy for the town of Spencer, which is a document that we use as a tool to guide us as we make or develop projects and applications. And Elizabeth here is tonight to talk about next year's application. They were here, she was here with Chris last meeting, talking about what we've been doing and what's going on with the current project, but now it's February you're due?
February 14th is the due date for the next application. So as you know, the Community Development Block Grant Program is funded through HUD, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development under the Community Development Act. It provides funding to large communities on an entitlement basis and to smaller communities under a competitive basis. Spencer is considered a Community Development Fund 1 town, which opens you up to a certain amount of funding. It is a highly competitive process. Spencer has been successful in the last few years in getting grants, which has been a great thing for the town. Some money coming in for some needed improvement projects, some planning studies, some housing rehabilitation projects, and we hope to continue that trend into fiscal year 14. The upside of this year's application is that because we had a successful community development strategy in 2013, the new guidance for the application is telling us that we don't need to update it this year. We can reuse the same community development strategy, assuming that everyone feels that it's still reflective of the town's needs. And in my review of it, I really do think that it reflects the projects that the town is interested in moving forward on. So there's really no need to update it this year. We can address it again next year. But just to run you through what the community development strategy is itself, it's a up to 7-page document that really lays out prior planning studies that have happened in the town, priority projects that the town wishes to focus on in the next 3 to 5 years, typical projects that are discussed in the community development strategy that are fundable projects include infrastructure rehabilitation, housing rehabilitation assistance, social services, and related planning, architectural, and engineering studies, all of which, in varying degrees, Spencer has been able to fund in the past. If you go through the community development strategy, the first few pages really addresses plans that have been done previously, including the town's master plan, the Heritage Landscape Reconnaissance Report, which was done in 2007, some zoning bylaw updates, the town center plan, open space and recreation plans, and those sorts of, large-scale plans that have been done recently. The community development strategy itself has been developed over the years, including last year through forums such as this with you all, in meeting with Adam, and through our, reading of past plans, and really working with the community to determine what the project goals should be for the next 3 to 5 years. That's on page 7. If you look there, you can see what our list of priority projects were last year, and I think it is reflective of the types of projects that we're interested in seeking funding for this year. The first is obviously establishing a housing rehabilitation program to update existing residential structures in the town, and that's something that's going to be included in our fiscal year 14 application, a healthy housing rehab program to really encourage residents to be able to upgrade the houses that they live in. It's also available for income-producing properties for investor owners to make upgrades and necessary improvements to houses that are for rent for Spencer residents. Number 3 there is to secure funding for the construction of Mechanic Street and other areas within the South Side neighborhood. And that really gets at the other big projects that we're interested in applying for funding for this year. As you know, Mechanic Street design was done in fiscal year 12. It's what Chris was here at your last meeting to discuss and really talk about the types of improvements that are going to need to be done to the street. What we'd like to do in fiscal year 14 is apply for the money to do those improvements. Now that they've been designed fully, we can really take that study and address the on-the-ground improvements that need to be done on Mechanic Street. The next project that we're interested in pursuing funding for kind of builds upon that and really to look at Chestnut Street and to design the improvements for that street so that in subsequent years you can apply for the funding to do those improvements. It's really a multi-step process. So by applying for the funding in fiscal year 12, we got the design money, and this year we'll apply for the construction money for Mechanic Street, and then a similar process would, in theory, happen with Chestnut Street in the future. Apply for the design now and go for the construction funds in the future. Those are really the big 3 projects that we're interested in pursuing money for in the fiscal 14 grant: housing rehab, Mechanic Street construction, and the Chestnut Street design. And again, there's really no need to update the community development strategy, but it's always nice to come and chat with you all about the town's priorities and to talk about the grant application and how we're moving forward on it. I think it's going to be a good application this year.
What do we have left for process? You know, in between, what's gonna happen between now and
Between now
February?
and February 14th, when we're all frantically finishing our grant applications, we will have at least one more meeting with you all to really have a hearing on the grant application itself and all the component pieces, and to go over the proposed budget for what the grant will include. How much for each, how much will be delegated out of the grant for each project. At this point, we're looking at a potential $800,000 to $900,000 grant for the town if it's successful. Yep.
Any questions?
Gary, I'm wondering what the process is. I can see the pressure is off, we don't have to update this now, but what is the process, if I could ask the chair, of actually modifying some of the language here or placing a different emphasis in the
Right.
strategy? How does that happen? We work with you or
Yep,
through the
absolutely.
planning?
In future
department?
years, next year, for instance, when we come back to, to apply for fiscal year 15's grant application, what we'll do is have a forum not unlike this, advertised to the public. Anyone can come and suggest changes to the document. We can make it available on the website for people to review beforehand. And really, we can look at, how the priorities have changed and whether they need to be reorganized and that sort of thing. But since it doesn't need to be done this year, we can wait until next year to really address the shifting around of some of the different projects. And if new projects come up that we want to add in, that's something we can address in the future.
Well, we got a lot on our plate right now, as you can tell from the discussions here this next year.
Absolutely.
But, I signed, I remember signing this last year, and I talked with Brenda just to make sure I understood the order of things. But there's some things that didn't hit me last year that really hit me this time when I read through it. And I feel like going forward, with making changes in the future, I'd like to see words like free market, opportunity, freedom, property rights also included in there. I feel like the document lacks balance. It doesn't reflect the individual tastes and styles of our community. And I get concerned about, especially, and the board knows this from my comments in the past, I get a little concerned about preservation restrictions, about land that's taken out of the tax base or taken out of the development category and protected. I feel like we've done a lot in this community. There's a lot of assets we have not fully taken advantage of. We've got Spencer State Forest, Old House State Park, which is languishing there. I just feel like there are resources we're not doing enough with. And I want to make sure as we plan going forward that we still leave room for change and keep a dynamic quality in the community. I feel like too often no offense to Adam's profession, but I feel like planning equals control. And I get a little nervous about planners, taking over in the way they just want to set things, and sustainable sounds like, does not equal, doesn't equal change. It's sustainable with change going forward. And those are language issues that I look forward to spending some time talking about those and hearing from the community. But I feel like those are words I want to make sure, like opportunity, property rights, so that our individual freedoms are respected and held up in these documents as well.
You're a planner, right? Just checking.
I am.
She wants control.
I understand.
I'm a preservation planner too, so it makes it even better.
What a lot to talk about.
Yes,
Could I ask just one thing?
absolutely.
Number 4, complete roadway and pedestrian improvements on Maple Street. We just got done doing that.
Well, this was done
Oh,
That was done
previously, so
before
that,
that
yeah,
work
okay,
was
so it's
done.
reflected
Really,
in last
that
year's
project
strategy.
is done.
You could come on.
Okay,
next
all
year
right,
it
that's,
come
I
on.
just thought it was on there again, I was gonna say, we ain't doing that road again.
Yeah, nope.
There also references a Sugden block, and we're.
Yeah, we're gonna sell that.
As well, so that's.
Well, again, some of the
Okay.
plans go back to.
That's what I was
The
wondering.
master plan was done in 2003.
Okay, all
So,
right.
Yeah.
you know, talk about doing different projects and different things, changing zoning around, some of those things have already been done, but,
That's what I wanted to make sure that, you know.
someday when we have free time, we'll try to redo the master plan.
Maybe nurses.
But we'll need a planner to do it.
Right.
I'm available.
Okay. Anything else?
No, thank you.
All set. Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
great, thank you very much. If you have any questions, please let me know. There's some
Thanks,
extra
Elizabeth.
copies here if anyone needs.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Have a good holiday.
Just keep planning and you'll be all set.
I couldn't find it unless you
I'm
found
an
it.
administrator now, John. I tried it.
I know you're a planner.
I tried it.
Still a planner.
Planner,
Once a planner, always a
that's right.
planner.
How do you think it? It's not there, right? Next item is discussion on the RFP. Adam, you had come up with one before. Did you
Well,
get that?
I took a look back, and actually, because it goes back a couple of years, but actually, there was a draft that was done in the early 2000s.
For the same spot?
The same spot. But it was a little different, involved a lease and different things. But since then, we've had an opportunity to, you know, pull some documents from some other communities that have done it. Obviously, I don't know enough about the transfer station in terms of what restrictions could we do, what could we not do. So there'd be a little bit of a process similar to what we're going through right now with the Sugden block that I would recommend, and that you form, you know, obviously have heavy involvement from Steve, Eben, and any other staff that are relevant, to work on such an idea. So when talking with Gary, we figured put a discussion item on here as it's a way to possibly generate some additional revenue for the community, which is something that we.
Can you come up, Steve? We can't puncture the cap, right? Is that what it is?
We cannot puncture the cap.
Right.
This is not something I've looked to in detail. I have looked up some things, so I do have some guidance documents in my office.
Gary said there's tracks you can lay on the ground.
There are,
perhaps.
yes, they do basically have what's called a spread footing, concrete block.
That's what's going on in Charlton right now.
Would hold it in place from wind.
By the vet there. There's a solar panel farm right now before Paul Dow's on the southerly side.
Yes, I'll.
So that's exactly what's going on there, is they have actually the concrete pads and the panels are set on top. There's other ones that they can't go in.
Yeah, the one up here, they did screw footings.
Yeah, they
Sure.
should, yeah.
Right, and we would need to do probably a spread type footing, and I think that's what's happening in Blackstone too. So the first part would be getting the DEP approvals and so forth to be able to do it, and then seeing whatever restrictions would be, and then you
Is this
could.
done
go
at other
from there.
landfills?
Just got done in Brookfield.
Oh, really?
I talked
Brookfield's
to,
Oh,
got
that's
it, yeah.
right, yeah.
I talked to,
I had clay blocks.
I talked to Danny Shields on this, and he said he had brought it up several years ago. That's why I brought it back up again. And then Brookfield did it on theirs, which they just opened, I guess.
Yes, I saw that. Oh, you said that.
So I know it's doable,
Well, my suggestion, Mr. Chairman, is
but
just to.
I think we gotta,
you know,
sorry.
You know, go through the process like we did with Sugden Block, you know, maybe have Steve and I work to just generate some research, and then maybe come up with, maybe a process in which we should undertake in order to go forward with it. Maybe look at what Brookfield did, you know, you may take different people in the field and to form a committee, you know, a small working group that could then develop the you know, work with DEP to get the approvals, develop an RFP, interview possible vendors and all that kind of stuff. Working through you as, you know, obviously the chief elected officials, but it's not as simple as, hey, go out and advertise it next
Right.
week. You know.
But I think it merits the investigation to,
So maybe Steve and I come back after the holidays with maybe some kind of research.
Yes, definitely, we can do that. One thing I'll, just to kind of remind is, we have the outstanding matter with regard to the cap, and we're gonna be going to the same people to get approval for this, so that's definitely something that we'll need to take care of, and that is something I'll be bringing for discussion. And one of the key things that came up recently is they really want us to ensure that we're prohibiting ATVs on the cap. and I've had started discussions like that. And I do plan to go meet with the snowmobile club to try to get a little bit of feedback and work with them, kind of input to see what suggestions they might have, or maybe even the possibility of rerouting the path that they have right now out there, and that might help us do that restriction. So, yes, absolutely, we can do solar. But I don't think there's a few steps to get there.
So we'll come back in 30 days or so and let you know what those steps are.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve.
Old business discussion, follow-up on Representative Spencer, East Brookfield Regional School District collective bargaining. Do we hear from East Brookfield?
We did. Just a discussion, I wanted to just inform the board that I did hear back from the chairman from East Brookfield, acknowledging that they saw it the same way, is that there's a rotation that's been going on over the last several negotiating agreements, and that indeed, this year, it is Spencer's, or this contract, it is indeed Spencer to have the lead representative, and then East Brookfield to have the alternate. So, as you know, you have voted Mr. Pepe to be the lead representative from both boards of selectmen. The chairman from East Brookfield advised me that they'd bring up, maybe even tonight, in their discussions in terms of selecting an alternate. And then as soon as we get notification from Spencer East Brookfield, we can keep those two gentlemen in the loop and get them to those meetings as required.
So was there a schedule that was passed along?
We have not been invited, informed yet, as we haven't received any contact from Spencer East Brookfield Regional School District. I did send them an email, a memo of the statute, and letting them know that we would be going through this process. So what we'll do now, what I can do now is, as soon as I get the contact from East Brookfield, I'll send another notification to them, letting them know that Mr. Pepe and whoever the selectman is from East Brookfield as the alternate should be invited and included in all correspondence related to the collective bargaining. So I'm just waiting for East Brookfield to choose their rep.
Okay, we'll wait for that. Town administrators report for all special town meeting follow-up.
Write this down so before I forget. Okay, so just a follow-up in terms of what was done last week and what the remaining process is now for making adjustments to this year's budget. So this week, the principal assessor and myself are working with the Department of Revenue to finalize what they call our tax recap, so that we can get a certified tax rate from the Department of Revenue. So again, we don't set the tax rate, the Department of Revenue sets the tax rate after they've gone through and seen all of the approvals that the town has made from a revenue standpoint and from an expense standpoint, making sure they all balance out, making sure that our revenues are within proper limits. And once that's all been done, this week they'll finalize our tax rate, and then tax bills will be sent to our vendor and then can be mailed out before the end of the year. So we are on target, and very happy to say that that was one of the most stressful pieces of this whole thing, was whether or not we'd get tax bills out, and it looks like we're gonna be okay. So with that, we had, I think, just over 100 people at the special town meeting, which is pretty good. We only need 50 for a quorum. A lot of familiar faces. It seems that, you know, the same 100 have shown up at the district-wide meeting and the special town meeting in July, and obviously the annual town meeting. So we do want to invite other folks to look out for our town meetings. Our next one will be in May. I think it's May 1st off the top of my head. And that's pretty much all I have, unless there's any questions from the board regarding any of the articles. All 14 seem to go pretty smoothly. Not a lot of discussion. I think we did a lot of our homework and preparation in advance, got the word out, what we were doing, what we needed to do, and it went through, 14 for 14. So, any questions on that?
Mr. Chairman, just to ask Adam, the state certifies the tax rate, but we do our, but you calculate what you expect it to be, because that's what you base the budget on, right?
No, what I base the budget on is not a rate, because the rate is tied to values. When I do a budget, I figure out what we have forecasted for revenues, what we're gonna get in tax levy based on the 2.5, what we have for approved overrides and debt exclusions, what I have for state aid, what I'm guessing for local receipts and any transfers, I have revenues. Then we prepare our expense side of the budget, which is the school assessments and the town's budget and all that. At the end of the day, that's my budget and kind of where it ends, okay? I don't base my budget on a rate. What they then do is they take our expenses based on our revenues. So let's say we have $20 million in revenues and $20 million in expenses. They take that $20 million and basically figure out what the part of the levy is that, and then back out and figure out all the expenses that we have, and basically match. The rate is a direct result of what the tax levy is, what we're authorized to raise, in addition to what the values of all the properties are in town. So there's also a process that we've been going on for the last several months of having Department of Revenue approve of our values.
I see.
So our tax levy, or actually divided by our values, gives us the rate, which was estimated by our by our principal assessor to be about $13.14, $13.15. So as long as the rate's approved, as long as the values are approved, the way we did the levy and the way we did our recap is as calculated correctly, it'll spit out a tax rate at the end of the day. Take that tax rate times your own individual property value will give you your tax bill. We have to make an adjustment because we sent out preliminary bills that were estimates back in July. We'll deduct those from your actual bills that are due in February and April.
Does the process generally result in any surprises, the way the state sort of calculates it and what we expect, where we expect it to fall?
No, I don't think so. I don't think expect any, I mean, it's not like we say that we predicted the rate's gonna be $13.50 and they're gonna come back and say it's $17. That's not gonna happen. But we can't send out a tax bill until we demonstrate to the state we've done everything correctly, and including calculating our values and calculating everything we've done at town meeting. Because one of the things they look at town meeting, and also elections, what have we for approved debt exclusions and overrides? So one of the things they have to look at was the override that was back in May for the rescue squad. It's now gonna hit the tax rate, okay?
Okay.
So the other thing is that payments change on your debt exclusions. So last year's payment for, it's not always equal principal, equal interest across the board, and you have a $150,000 payment for 7 years on a truck. It could be $175, $150, $145, $125. So that approval for that payment has to be shown to them so that they can add it to the levy, the approval of the levy, the calculation of the values and the rate, et cetera. So it's not a constant, I should say. We have to demonstrate, provide data and different things, so.
Thanks for that. Okay, thank you.
All set.
Next.
Next.
Okay, what I'd like to do tonight is, as we do every year at this time, right around Thanksgiving and before Christmas, is have a discussion about, and pretty much know where it's going, but a discussion with the Board of Selectmen in terms of the budget goals for staff. I think as you all know, and I've been able to relay to staff, I'll say it again, this year's process going through January to May is gonna be more intense and be a little more involved than we have in years past, because I've advised them, and I'm recommending that you wrap into your goal setting, as they prepare their budgets over the next 30 to 45 days, is the process of analyzing what's a core service or an elective service. Just like you have in college or school, you have certain core courses and then you have electives. Electives are discretionary in terms of what you're gonna do. Core is what you have to do. The other terms you could use is essential and non-essential. So plowing the streets is an essential service, okay? Is plowing private roads an essential service? Is having streetlights on private roads and every other road an essential service? Or is it above and beyond, and what is essential is really what's on Main Street or in certain other areas? So we're gonna look and we're gonna pull out every service from every department. Animal control, are we only gonna stop pit bulls from biting people, or are we also gonna save cats that are stuck in trees? I mean, those are the types of things that, we have $20 million in services we wanna provide next year, but we only have $19.3 million to spend, okay? We know that our assessment goes up, insurance usually goes up, we know that Bay Path's gonna go up, we know Spencer's Brookfield's gonna go up, we know gas bills go up, and we have 4 collective bargaining agreements that should go up, at some point, some relative speaking amount. So that's, in order to go through the analysis that we get to April, we set a warrant and we set a budget, and we have a certain amount of money to spend, you're gonna have, say, 212 services line out in front of you, and you're gonna have 40 core, and you're gonna have 180, 172 that are above and beyond maybe, that you're gonna have to pick and choose à la carte, let's say. And then there may be some essential services that fall, that you still don't have enough money to spend, that you may have to ask for an override for, or you have to go back and make further non-essential cuts. The things that we're doing on our end internally, we continue to look at restructuring, we continue to look at regionalizing, we continue to look at privatizing, we continue to look at things differently, only because we know we have to. So that's my recommendation for goals moving forward, is obviously to have my staff and myself prepare the proper information for you, so that when we go through the budget review, and including the finance committee as well, when we go through those reviews over the next few months, that you have enough information in your hand that you can then go through what I'll say an à la carte process, so that you can then pick and choose what services the town of Spencer is going to continue to do and which ones we're not. Because we all know, I know right now, next year, we don't have $400,000 in free cash to throw at the budget. Okay? We made $200,000 in cuts, a lot of which should go back in there. We made choices in July when we moved things, you know, I didn't buy $5,000 in computers this year that we have computers that are 2004. We should be buying new computers every year, and upgrading software. Those are things that have been put on hold. Those are things that should go back in the budget. So now you're up to $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $7,000 deficit before you even got an assessment bill from Bay Path or assessment bill from Spencer East Brookfield. Before you got an idea of what the retirement assessment's gonna be next year. Insurance, I'm having a meeting this week with our insurance broker. Typically, insurance goes up 10% per year. That's $100,000 right there. So I know next year, we're gonna have somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million deficit. And then hopefully we have an additional revenue. You know, we can have some 2.5 and other things that we can use to apply to, say, bring it down to like 700,000. Then the choices are gonna have to be made. That's all I really had tonight in brief. If you want more, I'll bring my budget package. Next week, we have a very light agenda. We just have the auditor next week. So my thought is I would go over, you know, my budget calendar with you next week. In addition, the budget requests and capital requests, and for staff, we also have the 10-year capital plan, which we're in year 3 of. We can go over that. They'll be asked to update that. And obviously, we'll have a capital planning process in come May. There'll hopefully be a little bit of money left that we can make some purchases. So with that, I'll take any advisement that you have, anything you want to add and want me to relay to staff in terms of information, documentation that you'd like to see. I think what they're gonna be asked to put together, you know, a particular service, why we do it, what data is behind it, and what the cost is as best as they can. Obviously, it's gonna be hard in some cases to, you know, calculate that, but at least give you an idea of, you know, what goes into certain things. So if there's anything else you'd like to add or relay to me that you want me to pass on, that above and beyond what I've just stated, I think we're on the same page. We've been on the same page for the last 6 months, but if you would like something else added, I'd be happy to hear it.
From the board? I'm all set. John?
I think one of the hardest things to do might be to look outside some of the budgets and departments that we have, because one of the things that I would encourage people to do, and I don't know what your meetings look like, Adam, with department heads, but maybe it's a year to talk about some logical consolidations of services, or if there's some services that cross over department lines that might be more efficiently done by one or the other. I hate to get into turf issues here, and I think everybody knows the task, and I would hope that people could step back enough to say, well, you know, we've got some audiences in common here. Maybe the way we can work with both groups in one location versus splitting them between two. I'm talking sort of in the abstract, but
Yep.
it's sometimes, when you go back to the same budget year after year and you try to see how you can do it better, sometimes the thing to do is, you know, just step, you know, to really, as I think you're starting to do, is to say, you know, what's this, what are we here for? What are the basic services, and don't be limited by the budget lines you use in the future. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Well, what I'm calling this year's budget is a priority-driven budget. So what I like to do is figure out what services do we wanna do, then look at how we provide that service in terms of what expenses go into and what personnel go into that service, and then look at possibly if there's a better way to do that, then do that. I can tell you that it's difficult, and as you know, I mean, certain things are bare bones. We have one fireman, full-time fireman. I mean, there's not really a lot of flexibility there, you know? And certain things just don't make sense, you know? The highway can't do things that the library does. I mean, you know, so,
We have a lot of faith
we are
in-
pigeonholed to a certain extent. However, I can tell you that we're always looking, and I think even this year, you know, I have a meeting this week with two town administrators from another town, regionalizing a particular service, which I'm not ready to share yet, but these conversations are always going on. It's just that, you know, it's a necessary component of this year's budget, that, it's more of what the service is. You know, plowing roads, how do we plow roads? Well, we have 9 guys now instead of 10, we used to have so many. We do these roads, public roads, and then in addition, we do these private roads, and as part of that, we hire X number of contractors on top of the staff that we have, and it costs us $85 an hour, $100 an hour, you know, do what's essential, what's not essential, what do we do if we change it, in terms of what way? And then, you know, you have to look at everything as a package, and you look at, you know, all the services that we do in this community. You're gonna have some tough choices, But we'll get you the info.
Thank you. Board liaison report, anybody have anything?
Mr. Chairman, this week, the Sugden Block Committee will be meeting to start working towards public hearings. That's tomorrow.
So you guys are meeting tomorrow, what time?
5:30.
Okay. Perfect. Anything else? Okay, that being said, next item, citizens input. Anybody like to be heard? Mr. Norquist.
Brett Nordquist, Gale Drive. I just listened to what Adam says, and I've been in town here 40 years, but I just want to say, I think the majority of people support the town, what they're doing. We have an excellent highway department, we have an excellent water department, and all town departments, in the town hall here, everybody gives 100%. I think one of the biggest problems was this past year was with the schools, but I would think the people would support, and they might crucify me between now and then, but they would support a small override to fund the towns, to keep what they got here. I mean, not add on all kinds of people, but get the seniors, like Mr. Serpa said, get the seniors a place up there, well-deserved, and you know, keep the transfer station. That was brought up in a survey that overwhelmingly, they wanted a transfer station. It's the best way, it's the cheapest way to go. $30 a month to have curb picked up, and you know, we've been down that road. But I think the people would support a small override, a couple $100,000, maybe I'm wrong, a couple $100,000. I was just upstairs, and they have a stack of tax bills that people haven't paid this past quarter, and there's a bunch of watersheds going to affect tomorrow. So people are having a hard time, no doubt about it. But we have to have a place to live. We have an excellent tax rate. I heard people say they come here because of another reason. They come here because it's a low tax rate, it's close to Worcester, it's a clean town, there isn't a lot of drugs running around that we can see. There's no gangs in town. I think it's an excellent. And so with all the stories out there, that's why they come here. And so, you know, I would support that, and I think a lot of people, and you might get feedback, but I think that's what it is. But if you devastate the town any more than what you got, I don't know how you're gonna function as a town. I mean, the town next door to us, East Brookfield, says they could support this last override, and so now they're looking to raise their taxes down there because they gotta pay their share. So it's all stories, but, you know, I just wanna say that as a taxpayer. You know, and I'm retired, so I don't have a lot of money either, but it is a good town, and you guys run it excellent, and the town manager is excellent, and you can't ask for anything more. But I know it's tough, so that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none. Board member and staff comments? Nothing? Okay.
You gotta vote on something here, Ed? Executive session?
Yeah, we're gonna
Negative.
request, you know?
No voting, just discussion, so we don't have to come out.
So we might get to adjourn, right?
Yeah, so I make a motion to go into executive session on the Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Paragraph 3, for the purpose of discussing strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation.
This is a roll call vote.
Aye.
Oh, I need a second first.
Oh, second.
I have a motion, and a second.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Yeah.
Gotta be different.
Thank you, everybody.